Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's FPC Radio Live. It's Monday, January the 16th, 2023, and we are 5/6 of the way through Super Wildcard Weekend. We have the Cowboys heading to Tampa Bay. Frigid Tampa Bay, may I add, John. And I know you're just going to have to take my word for it as someone who's lived down here for 8 years and has completely adjusted to the warm temperature and the warm climate down here. It is frigid at 45 degrees when I woke up this morning.
Oh, you poor baby, you. I mean, there's like 5 inches of snow here and more to come, I guess. Although we, obviously we're not Buffalo, that's for sure, where they got 11 feet in about 2 weeks a couple months ago. But yeah, should be interesting to see tonight's game. It was a super duper wild card weekend, right? Just lots to talk about with crazy games, comebacks, and coaching decisions and officiating and pretty much everything that the NFL is all about.
Well, let's just say I made the mistake, not the biggest mistake during the Chargers game. If anyone heard about the guy who decided to try to squeeze $11,000 out of a bet when the Chargers were up 27-0 and ended up losing $1.5 million. Was
that Al Michaels that did that? I'm convinced it was Al Michaels.
He sounded like it at least
by the end of that game.
Oh my God, that was very disappointing. That I don't know. We can get to some of the commentating from this weekend because there were some lackluster performances, so to speak, and we're not looking for broadcasters to necessarily be the star of the show, but there was some very obvious lacking of energy in certain games, and it was disappointing from an entertainment standpoint. But anyways, 27-0. I decided to go to Twitter and I was like, no, I didn't say anything. Like I didn't, celebrate for the Chargers because there's one cardinal rule, and I actually tweeted this to someone on Twitter, and there's receipts that I follow. The cardinal rule is never believe in Brandon Staley or the Chargers as long as Brandon Staley's there. And this was at 27-0. Right. Now, I didn't call a comeback or anything like that, but I just cautioned anyone who was, punching their ticket to the second round at halftime. But anyways, at halftime around then, I tweeted out something like, "Oh, we just don't need," and I talked about this last week. Really don't need 3 days of super wild card weekend. And at the time, I'm thinking, well, we had a kind of a snooze fest, the night before with San Francisco, obviously just kind of steamrolling. And then at 27-0, you're thinking, oh, great, here we go again. The Chargers, whatever. I take that back. So far, the worry that I had was we're making the playoffs a little bit too saturated to begin with, and I think there's a shortage of great teams. So naturally, even now we're getting bottom scrapers, in the 7th seed that really don't have a chance. I think they're 0-6 now, John, since the 7th seed has been introduced. So this isn't the NBA or this isn't the NHL where a 1 versus 8 seed, anyone can win. So I was kind of worried, like, okay, you're going to stretch. We're going to have 3 days with at least one bad football game each day, and that's assuming that we don't get this offensive explosion and competent football tonight from these two teams who are certainly capable of giving us a lot of sloppy football, and that might be what we get tonight, especially in the cold. But John, I mean, these games were incredibly entertaining. They were close. They came down to the wire. Even the games, even the Dolphins and Bills, even the Ravens and Bengals, 2 games that we both thought kind of were not going to be that competitive outside of just the division aspect. They at least gave them a run for the money. And look, I mean, the Bengals, I think I'm not putting too much stock in a team losing or winning a game close. I think the only people that are putting a lot of weight in that are Kansas City Chiefs fans, because I think it kind of makes them feel a little bit better. But, that was a gritty win by both of those teams. And, it's not something you're going to go home and say, yeah, we can, this inspired confidence. No, but it just kind of affirmed what you already know about your team, is that you can win any way you want or any way you need to. Whether it's scrappy, whether it's creating opportunities on defense. If, say your quarterback turns the ball, Josh Allen turned the ball over a few times again. And that's kind of what his reputation has been this year, is that he turns the ball over. But what did we talk about last week? The Bills find a way to win. And that's what we saw from both the Bills and the Bengals this week. And I think heading into this weekend against each other, one of these teams is going to, it's kind of iron sharpening iron, so to speak, in my opinion. And I think getting that kind of scrappy game out of the way first is going to lead to a great matchup this weekend between those two teams. So I'm not terribly worried about either of those teams at all. Because again, I mean, we don't have to point out how many times the Chiefs have, gone to overtime against the Texans or lost to the Colts. You know what I'm saying? Or kept the Broncos in a game in which, this entire season the Broncos have never been in games. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I don't know. I mean, again, the Chargers to me were the biggest takeaway from this weekend, and I think you agree with me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest story. We're still talking about it. And it took place Saturday night. I was at an event Saturday night, and I was on my third dish of lasagna. So I was kind of checking into the game every now and then. And it was 27-0. And I said to the DJ, I go, the only team of football that could blow a 27-point lead right now would be the Chargers, because that's what they do. I mean, they're just so up and down. Mm-hmm. And when they're on, they look really good. But then they follow it up with a quarter that they look like one of the worst teams in football. So to say I wasn't overly surprised would be an understatement. I mean, it was still shocking to lose a 27-0 lead against a team in Jacksonville that's played pretty well down the stretch, but has a second-year quarterback who threw 4 interceptions in the first half. Like, the Chargers didn't do much in the first half other than catch Trevor Lawrence's passes. Yeah. That was what their accomplishment was. So it's 27-0. Jacksonville does get that late touchdown at the end of the second quarter, kind of gets them back into the game a little bit, and then their offense was never stopped in the second half, and the Chargers just kind of mailed it in from there, led by Joey Bosa, who just absolutely lost his mind to the point where they took him off the field in the final drive. I mean, he's one of your best defensive players. But, yeah, I mean, the Cincinnati-Buffalo component, I think Buffalo plays football the way John Daly plays golf. Like, it's just like 400-yard drives, like really showy stuff. And then some of the situational football, my Lord, they are pathetic at it, right? I mean, he threw 2 more interceptions. There was the fumble, which led to the strip sack touchdown. They do just drop passes and it's just crazy stuff, right? But they found a way to win. And Cincinnati, I know I love Joe Burrow, obviously. He's ascending to become my favorite quarterback, but we always talk about their offense. Their defense is pretty good. Yeah. I think that's what got them through the playoffs last year, because that Cincinnati offense wasn't great in the postseason last year. Remember all the sacks that the teams had against Cincinnati? And they weren't putting up a ton of points, but it was their defense that actually was the better unit. And again, last night they came up with that huge turnover, the 98-yard touchdown run by Hubbard off a fumble. So, I mean, both teams, you advance, and now you try to play obviously better football. And just think about the last few weeks with Cincinnati and really the entire year with Buffalo, what those teams have been through. They're still standing somehow.
Yeah. And look, I never overreact to divisional matchups. I don't care what their records are. I don't care, where they are, whether it's a division winner, whether it's a guy, another team that has 4 fewer wins. It doesn't matter to me. Divisional matchups always have a bit of a different feel to them and different swings, in my opinion. So to me, I'm like, okay, they won a tight, hotly contested division matchup against a inferior opponent. And sometimes those are the teams that get the best teams. Let's think about some of the great teams that, let's say maybe we're chasing perfection, so to speak. If you remember the Colts not too long ago, was it 2009? Actually, it is kind of a long time ago now that I think about it. I think it is like a couple of years ago. No, it wasn't. I believe they lost. Who did they lose to when they were 14-0? It was not a good team. I think it was the Dolphins, right?
No, in 2009, well, 2009 they went to the Super Bowl and lost to New Orleans. But 2005, they were clearly the best team in football, and then they lost to Pittsburgh in the divisional round. I'm talking about teams like, because remember that year that they lost to the Saints. I mean, both them and the Saints were, one was 13-0, another was 14-0. Right. But I'm pretty sure the Colts lost. They lost to the Chargers too.
Yes,
remember the Chargers were 8-8 and
right.
won the division, and the Colts were 12-4, and I think the Chargers won in overtime. Because oftentimes when you see that matchup of the sub 500 team or the 500 team that makes the playoffs, oftentimes will win. I obviously the biggest one was New Orleans losing as an 11-5 defending champ to Seattle, who was 7-9. So maybe there's hope for the Buccaneers tonight at 8-9 going up against 12-5 Dallas. So yeah, the division part of it is so true, Ian. I mean, let's go back to 2010. I know it's an old wound, but the Patriots looked like a steamrolling team, and they lost to the Jets in the divisional round, a team they'd beaten 45-3 6 weeks earlier. I mean, so by the you get to the third time of the year, you really know that team. So you can really get fine-tuned and intricate with your preparation. All the games this weekend are rematches, and in 3 cases, a third time. So yeah, I mean, Miami's played Buffalo tough every time this year. They beat them earlier. Mm-hmm. They lost a close game 5 weeks ago in Buffalo, and give them credit. They found a way. Although I don't know how you scored 31 points and barely had 200 yards of offense. Well, that's the maddening thing about Buffalo is you only give up 200 yards of offense, but you give up 31 points because you keep turning the ball over.
Like I'm not going to give. I was just going to kind of interject. I was going to say I'm not going to give Miami too much credit here because you kind of alluded to it, and I see on our chat here, hot coffee, which I appreciate that. I love coffee. On Twitch says Staley Firejet, and I said no, but he should be. He should be. Hopefully, it happens while we're on the air, so we can break the news and take a victory lap because of it.
They probably wouldn't do it till tomorrow, only because there's a game tonight. Not that people follow any of these unwritten rules or whatever, but maybe they'll do it tomorrow. And again, who knows with the Spanos family, which notoriously cheap. They may just want to keep him on board because they don't want to pay him and another coach. Which would be foolish.
That's true. So if you're a Chargers fan, you better be crossing your fingers that you get that news comes down the news wire the next 24 to 48 hours. But we kind of talked about heading into the season or heading into the postseason, Mike McDaniel, and I thought he had a very bad day yesterday. Very bad day. And a lot of it had to do with continued issues with clock management, the ability to kind of look, he came in with a lot of praise. He's taking photos with the media, and look, we know how this game works. You chalk it up with the media members. They're going to give you a little bit more rosy, especially when you have nothing to criticize on the field. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have a clean slate. All you have is a great reputation being in San Francisco and working under Kyle Shanahan. So for him, the beginning was great. Oh, you're coming in. You have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua. There's stories about him talking to Tua on the plane or on the sideline saying, your high school film stinks. And it's like, oh my God, it's so refreshing. Mike McDaniel, he's such a new voice in this league. It's the trend. Well, how good of a coach really is he, John? Because we've seen good offensive coaches, certainly have their influence on a game, but this team, when I saw, was still huddled up with 5 seconds left on the play clock.
Incredible.
That's at this point in the season, that's bad. I don't care who's your quarterback, who's under center. We saw on the sidelines, he was indecisive. He wasn't putting these plays in, and that's the responsibility of the play caller. If the quarterback's not getting the play until the last few seconds that the microphone's actually linked up, then, well, guess what? That's your problem. You need to be ready for those situations, and it came at the most crucial time. So, look, I don't think he's going to lose his job, but unlike the Chargers, if the opportunity presents itself for the Dolphins to get Sean Payton and or Tom Brady, I very much believe the Dolphins ownership will make that move if they feel like that's the best move for their organization. Because, quite frankly, it's like, how much of a leash do you give coaches? And look, I'm not too concerned. I kind of criticize people who are talking about players that should lose their job and get cut and this, that, and the other. Well, coaches, if they get fired, they get to keep their money until they get a new job. So, that to me, if they get fired, I'm not losing sleep over it because they're not losing their contract money.
Cliff Kingsbury is going to be paid the next 5 years.
He's already in Thailand.
He's in Thailand. Yeah, a one-way ticket to Thailand.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I don't blame the guy. No, why would you want to go work for someone play calling in the NFL? You're still going to get paid. Take the year off. I mean, he's got that gorgeous house in Arizona. I'm sure he does well with the ladies. A good-looking dude. Now he's in Thailand meditating. Good for him. Maybe Aaron Rodgers will meet him there.
Yeah, you'll see him there, and then they'll start the Thailand football league. Just be
that wouldn't surprise me, right? But you're so right about McDaniel. And look, we all like the guy because he's quirky, right? I mean, he's right out of a Wes Anderson film. I mean, there's obviously the stories that, was he getting high on the sideline? Was he vaping? Which wouldn't surprise me, because that particular play that you talked about, they're in the huddle with 5-6 seconds left on the play clock. I thought I was watching the Green Bay Packers. That's something that they do continually. Like, your job is to get the play call in. And how many times have we said this? Sometimes wrong and strong is better than right and weak. Yeah. Be affirmative with your play call. Maybe it's not the best play call, but, maybe it works out. He's saying that he thought it was first down when it was clearly fourth down. So, I mean, does he not have a coach in the sky, in the booth, that is on the headset saying, Mike, it's 4th and 1 right here. What are we doing? Someone that's getting that extra set of eyes. Does he not have that? Like, what's the mechanism of how things work?
Either way, it's not a good look. I mean, if you're not aware of the down and distance and the situation, then what are you doing? Like,
right.
how can
that's your job?
Yeah, like you had one job. You had one job, Mike McDaniel, and that is to have your team prepared, and you're not even prepared or understand when the down and distance is. So, look, Miami is it's a man. This is a team that could be great. It really can, John. The talent, maybe not. Look, again, I don't know what's happening at the quarterback position. I really don't. The health of Tua is concerning. The inconsistent play is a bit concerning. Again, I mean, we talked earlier in the season about, how great the Dolphins were with him starting and finishing, and then it kind of tailed off towards the end of the season, and they came down to earth. They had the 5-game losing streak, all that nonsense, and it obviously led to, a one and done situation in the playoffs. So what does Miami do? Well, it appears that they're not. Again, this could be a little bit of a maybe it's not, the perception's a little bit different, but it appears that they're not too far off from Buffalo based on all the things that went wrong for Miami and the fact that it was still a game late yesterday. So maybe you build off that and say, you know what? If we make move 1, 2, and 3, and maybe they're drastic, maybe they're, you talk about being decisive. Well, Mike McDaniel wasn't decisive. Maybe the organization is going to be decisive and say, look, we have an opportunity to compete. Like, you can't just wait around forever with Tyreek Hill. The guy's eventually going to lose his speed when he gets older. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a guy that's going to, be this guy for this long period of time. You need to figure out the quarterback position and decide what you need to do. So, I don't know. I like I said, barring some situation, like I said, that presents itself where, you can go out and get Sean Payton if you're the Dolphins, then I don't think Mike McDaniel's going to lose his job. But I guarantee you he's not coming into next season with as much love and support as what he got heading into it, because now you have film. Now you have him on tape. And like I said, there's a lot of things, maybe more so than the positive, that kind of give you kind of a negative view on how his first season went. So, yeah, I like I said, it's going to be an interesting offseason in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, they've already been penalized, the first-round pick, for tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady, so why not go ahead and do it? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, you've
at least get something for it,
Sure, why not? Be big, be bold. I mean, look at the 4 teams remaining in the AFC, right? You've got Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Jacksonville. The 4 teams have franchise quarterbacks. We can all agree on that. Stud quarterbacks. I don't ever recall a divisional round having that caliber of quarterback for each and every team. I kind of look back and when Brady, Manning, and Roethlisberger were, dominating the conference, especially Brady and Manning, but there was always some like outlier quarterback in there that wasn't certainly at the level of these 4 guys. These 4 teams have combined towards the end of the season to put together a 28-game winning streak. They're all on fire. So if you're the Miami Dolphins and you want to crash the party, is Tua the quarterback that can do that? I don't think so. And is Mike McDaniel the coach that can do that? You got to have one or the other, preferably both. And you may not have the quarterback, you may not have the coach. You're gonna lose on wild card weekend to Buffalo or Cincinnati or someone going forward. So yeah, be big, be bold.
No, I agree. And again, the team that should be the boldest, or actually at this point it shouldn't even be a bold move, is the Chargers. But speaking of Trevor Lawrence, though, and that's the crazy thing about that game. Let's go back to that for a minute, because we this whole season, it's almost like that game was almost a microcosm of this entire season for Jacksonville. That first half was about as bad as you could play. And Trevor Lawrence, I mean, there's a few interceptions that were just bad, and you're sitting here thinking like, is he going to just flush away all that progress and all that goodwill that that he built up over the last half of the season? Where we're sitting here saying like, all right, Trevor Lawrence, he's starting to live up to that hype, that billing that he had coming into the league, and then the first half happens, and you're like, my God, is this like potentially apparently there's something going on outside. I really got to start closing these windows. We have a fire station not too far down my house, so every so often we get some emergency vehicles driving by. And anyways,
that can be a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, if something happens, they're right there, but obviously you're going to hear sirens all the time.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it's usually only distracting in the morning when I'm recording a live broadcast, of course. Just the timing of it's always fantastic. But, we're sitting here watching Trevor Lawrence, and we're like, oh, man, this is going to be tough to come back from. Like, a rough start and being kind of a slow learner, that's not bad. But, like, having a bad start, making progress, and then absolutely plummeting back to where you began, that's devastating, and potentially you're unable to come back from that as a quarterback. Except for Trevor Lawrence did it in the second half and completely flipped the script. And you're sitting here thinking like, that's why he had this type of hype. Had this type of hype coming into the year because of the talent and the ability. And look, we talk about strengths of guys like Brady who can, just turn the page on poor play or whatever in the moment. And we saw that from Trevor Lawrence, because how often do you come back from a 4-turnover first half and put together a epic comeback? I don't care what team you're going up against, unless it was Houston. Houston's whatever, but you know what I'm saying? Like how do you do that? It's impressive.
Very impressive. We've talked about it so many times about Brady, the 28-3 comeback. He threw a pick six in that game, and from that point forward, he was perfect. The comeback win over Seattle 2 years earlier than that. He had thrown 2 interceptions earlier in that game. What did he do from that point forward? Perfection, and sliced up the best defense in football to win that Super Bowl. That's what a great quarterback does. First half, Trevor Lawrence Saturday night was the worst quarterback of the weekend. Second half, Trevor Lawrence on Saturday night was the best quarterback of the weekend. It was that pronounced. So impressive, really. And let's not forget, a lot of these franchise quarterbacks, the first time they get to the postseason, it's not always that pretty. I mean, Peyton Manning's first 3 playoff appearances were disasters, right? I mean, in 2002, which I think was his 3rd playoff appearance, wasn't it 41-0? They lost to the Jets. I mean, it was just horrible. So, it takes a little bit of time, but give him credit. A horrible first half. I mean, it doesn't really happen with a quarterback of that caliber, but you would think, are they going to pull him and put someone else in at this point because he just doesn't have it? Well, he had it in the second half. Really very impressive performance by a young guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, this being your first playoff start. That's what's really impressive about that, is like you were able to kind of, regain your composure and bring yourself back to, this level that you're able to compete and come back. Because, yes, and people point to these things all the time, generally the folks that didn't appreciate the comeback. Like, oh, he got lucky here. Yes, I mean, luck happens. You need it to have these comebacks. You need everything to kind of go right. But more importantly, you need to deliver. And that's what Trevor Lawrence did. And he competed, he delivered, and he produced. And that's ultimately what won them the game. And, now you're looking at it as, this could be franchise altering, positive or negative, for the Chargers. It kind of depends on what they do this offseason and kind of the process, whether it's going to be a new coach and which coach it's going to be. But now you're looking at Jacksonville as a team who, over the last, 2-3 months, they've had several comebacks of fairly impressive fashion, in terms of, okay, this team is just never out of it. They have so much talent that, despite how bad they may play at times, it's ultimately going to be able to make some plays. And now you're going up against a team, John, who is notorious for playing good and bad halves. And that's Kansas City. So on paper, you're sitting here thinking, oh, Kansas City obviously drew the easiest matchup. And it probably is going to be, in terms of, well, you talk about Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. And then, Jacksonville, I'm not going to sit here and pretend they're like the goofy looking dragon, from that meme where it's like strength, 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 and then some, dunce. But they're clearly not quite on the same level as those three teams. So, yes, it's going to be kind of looked at as, well, Kansas City should be the favorite. But based on how these teams play, I feel like it's pretty unpredictable. Like, I'm probably going to end up picking the Chiefs to win this game. But, you have one team that is just really never out of it, really playing with house money if you're Jacksonville. I mean, they've been riding a high since Tony Baselli went into the Hall of Fame earlier this year or early last year. And rightfully so. I mean, this is a franchise that doesn't really have much success in their history. I mean, certainly not too many Hall of Famers, considering he was really the first. So, yeah, I mean, they're playing with house money right now. What do they have to feel for pressure about? If they lose to Kansas City, it's not a big deal. If they beat Kansas City, I mean, all of a sudden you're talking about uh, jersey purchases and everything like that. I mean, Jacksonville's back, Duval County, all that stuff. So to me, they're going to come into this weekend playing pretty loose. And I think, look, part of that has to point to Doug Peterson. I mean, we talked about him a lot the last couple weeks based on what they've been doing in Jacksonville, that is, and really how they've kind of taken on the demeanor of their coach. And we saw it with the Eagles a few years ago. Obviously, when they won the Super Bowl, there was this freeness that they felt playing the game. I mean, you go for two, you know what I mean? Like the decision making process. I mean, talk about a huge difference in the ability to make decisions. Mike McDaniel and Doug Peterson. I mean, it's night and day. I mean, I'm not
absolutely.
Like, I'm not the type of person who, I'm not I would say I'm more traditional from the fourth down point of view in terms of like, I'm not sitting here. I couldn't care two bleeps about all these like analytics talking about fourth down. I don't care about that stuff. I think it's instinctual. I think that the right and wrong decisions are based on good instincts, not a data sheet telling you when and where these things were successful for other teams and other games. I don't care about that. I care about what's happening right now. And what Doug Peterson did was he read the room. He read the room and made these decisions to go for it. And in certain situations that obviously that won them the game. And I think that was that's when you look at, if you want to find a team that could potentially turn the whole thing upside down, it's Jacksonville, because you have a experienced coach, a very talented quarterback, a lot of talent on the team, and like I said, maybe more importantly, this ability to just play freely and not have any sort of noise affecting them from the outside, because what do they got to lose at this point, John?
Nothing. No one expects anything from them. And they've already played in Kansas City this year, and they were somewhat competitive in that game. I believe they lost by 10 points. So I think they will go on the field and expect that they can compete with the Kansas City Chiefs. And as we said, the Chiefs have had some close victories this year, which is a good thing. No one's saying that's not a good thing, but it also means that, the other team has talent on the offensive side of the ball. They've got a good pass rush. Jacksonville does, right? I mean, they can put pressure on the quarterback. So those are things that may be able to, keep this game competitive. And as it continues to go on, if we're, late in the third, early in the fourth, and this thing is a 3-point game either way, the pressure is going to be on Kansas City. Everybody expects them to win. So, yeah, I mean, Doug Peterson, look, the guy won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. Even the following year, he got them back to the divisional round, got them to the playoffs the following year, and then the quarterback situation blew up with Carson Wentz, and Jalen Hurts came along, and who was supporting Hurts, who was supporting Wentz. It was kind of a very much a drama-filled story. So, yeah, the guy can coach, and you've got a uber talented quarterback. So they, as you said, I mean, it is a cliche. They are literally playing with house money.
No, that's what it is. And think about just think about how much, because like you said, the pressure is going to be on Kansas City. They're the ones that are probably going to come in a little bit more tense, a little bit more, okay, it's the playoff time, and if things start to maybe not go their way early, that's when you start to tense up. And like if it happens with Jacksonville, yeah, I mean, you're gonna you don't want to lose, but at the same time, you're you weren't expected to go, this isn't, your fan base isn't calling you a dynasty. You know what I mean? You're not dealing with that type of noise. This is maybe you're a year too early from your run. Okay. And that sometimes is a good thing, because sometimes you learn a lot about some of these experiences. And right now they can play loose and really not think about any other storyline or narrative or expectation or anything like that. So, all right. So, anyways, like I mentioned, we have one more game tonight. Obviously, the Cowboys heading to, like I mentioned at the top of the show, frigid Tampa Bay. It's going to be in the low 50s around kickoff time, which, again, relative to normal weather around here in Tampa, that is fairly frigid. I don't. I look at this game, and the Cowboys obviously have the much better record. The Buccaneers are, every so often we get a team that's under 500 or at 500 that wins their division and ends up getting into the playoffs. That doesn't matter. And again, I know people are sitting here talking about deserve this or doesn't deserve that. Well, I say, did Tampa win their division? Well, yeah. Well, okay, they deserve to be in the playoffs. Say that about any division winner, because as soon as you render that moot, winning your divisions become pointless, and then it's a mess. So yes, can a team that has a worse record make the playoffs against a team that doesn't? Absolutely. Unfortunately for that other team, they didn't win their division, so I'm sorry, they didn't deserve to get into the playoffs. So at this point, 0-0. And if you're going to look at the strengths and weaknesses of both teams, I think maybe more so would favor Dallas, except the quarterback position. And I think the offense, it's like, I don't want to assume good health with the Buccaneers, because I think that would, kind of sway how I analyze or look at this game. So I'm assuming that it's not going to be easy no matter what they do. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at a guy in Brady who, over the last month, has really looked a lot better. This offense has looked a little bit more cohesive. They've done things differently that have led to a lot more success and a lot more consistency, to say the least. I mean, the consistency was non-existent earlier in the season, and now at least there's some. I still like Tampa in this game. It's not going to be easy. But like I said last week, and kind of going into this game, I just kind of feel that they're going to turn the ball over. And by that, I mean Dallas is going to turn the ball over. And I think Tampa's defense is going to create turnover, something that they really, really weren't doing for a large portion of the season, which, again, was one of the attributing factors as to why this team just never seemed to catch fire and go on a run, and just ended the season 8-9. So I like this matchup for Tampa Bay. I think it's probably one of the best ones they could have got to kind of, maybe light a fire under their rear end, so to speak, as they get into the playoffs. But it's not going to be an easy win. It might quite possibly come down to the last couple of possessions.
Yeah, it should. I mean, look at Tampa this year. All their wins are close. Like, they're not blowing teams out. Seems to be the MO is they get down 10 in the fourth, and Brady comes back and has two drives, one that gets them close and one that wins it for them. He's done that, I think, on 4 or 5 occasions this year. So that wouldn't surprise you. I don't think they're good enough to just blow out Dallas. Dallas does have the talent to maybe win comfortably tonight, but they always have a tendency of turning the ball over, having poor clock management, getting double-digit penalties so that, they let the other team back in the game. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, you've got the ultimate winner in Brady going against the franchise that has a grand total of 2 playoff wins since 1995, right? I mean, so that kind of is there. So the confidence is there for Brady and Dallas. They're kind of carrying the weight of the world as they enter the playoffs. And I know that guys on this team had nothing to do with other playoff failure for the most part, although many of them were there last year when they lost to San Francisco. But that does weigh on a franchise, especially when you've got the most famous owner in all of sports up in the owner's box peering down, and you're going to see, countless shots of him celebrating or being upset about what's taking place on the field. I still like Dallas. I think they're just a better team, but Brady is a tough guy to bet against in these situations.
Well, and the tricky part is, and you said, obviously, and you're right, there's many instances where the Buccaneers kind of dug themselves out of a almost certain defeat. And we talked about it throughout the season. A lot of that had to do with how they attack teams on offense. Are they going to Are they going to come out and do what they did the first 14 weeks of the season? And that is run, pass. Now, it wasn't always like that. And towards the end of the season, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to consistency. They seem to have. Greg Olson said it best, by the way, yesterday during the broadcast. He might have been the best one, him and Mike Tirico, all weekend. But he said it best. You pass to set up the run. It's not the other way around. It's not 1970. It's not 1980. It's not 1990. It's not the early 2000s. You pass to set up the run. And we saw that in the very brief time that the Buccaneer starters were out against the Falcons. We saw that the week before against the Panthers. I know they fell behind early and there were some circumstances that led to that, but we saw that throughout the game. And surprise, surprise, John, you have one of the most productive stretches of offense for this team. And not to mention, and this is something we talked about, Chris Godwin looks like he's getting healthier. And we didn't see that for the first 3 months of the season. We saw a guy that, was missing a extra step, and you're starting to see a little bit more of that. He's just got to stop fumbling the ball. You don't want to see that happen again for a third week in a row, but keep getting him the ball in open field, let him get those yards after the catch, and keep attacking with Mike Evans and stop with this very basic run up the middle because, well, it's just not effective. So I agree with you. I think overall, like top to bottom, you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys, and yeah, look, their record was better. They're likely a better team overall, but the most important thing is well, the quarterback position. And not only do I think Brady's playing better, you add in the fact that, well, Dak Prescott's turning the ball over at a fairly historic rate right now, especially for a quote unquote good team. I mean, you see this from bad teams. You don't see this from division winning teams that are, having 12, 13 wins a season. So that I think is going to ultimately be the biggest factor in this game.
Oh yeah. I mean, other than the Chargers Jacksonville game, turnovers are so important. I mean, incredibly, the Chargers won the turnover battle 5-0 and still found a way to lose. Buffalo and Miami, they were kind of turning the ball over at a high rate, both teams. So it kind of leveled off at some point. But yeah, which is crazy about Dak Prescott because early in his career, he wasn't a guy that turned the ball over all that much. I believe his rookie year, he had like 4 interceptions. He's got good weapons there.
He broke Brady's record for most consecutive passes without an interception to start his career.
Yeah. I mean, he was careful with the football. I mean, of course, his rookie year was also Zeke Elliott's rookie year, and they were a run-first team. That team had a great offensive line.
Yeah, I was going to say that offensive line was, I mean, good God.
As good as we're going to see.
Yeah. But
you got three Hall of Fame caliber offensive linemen all in their peak. I mean, that team was loaded. Yeah, so that's not the case right now. Who's ever left is that much older and banged up. But yeah, that's what it's going to come down to. Tampa's not been great at forcing turnovers, but heck, Miami wasn't great at forcing turnovers either, and they got 3 of them yesterday and almost pulled off an upset. So that is the great equalizer in football. I still think Dallas is better, but again, would it shock me if it's a 4-point game and Brady's charging them down the field and wins it with a last-minute second touchdown to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or whoever? No, we've seen it so many times.
I just want, honestly, for a lot of reasons, but give me like a Patriots Colts 2014 game. Give me like 45-10. I want people to start sweating across the league. You know what I mean? Like whether it's legit or not. I mean, it could just be fool's gold if they go out and blow out the Cowboys. But I want people to stop and sit there and say, "Uh-oh, have we underestimated? Maybe it's just maybe."
He's back.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Well, look, I mean that again. That's the fan in me hoping for a something I can really gloat over tomorrow, and certainly make. I got a dentist today, and I hate going to the dentist. So I'm
I'm trying not much luck at the dentist either. But who is San Francisco rooting for? Because they're just waiting to win. And look, the way they looked, I don't.
Look, Dallas.
Yeah, I would think so too. I mean,
look, at the end of the day, I don't care. You're never going to root for Tom Brady to come into a playoff game against you.
Oh,
Like,
I can tell you that from 2 years ago.
yeah, like it's yes, I know. We have proof.
Yeah.
We have audio actually of that.
Yeah. Like, come on, Drew Brees, you can beat Tom Brady. You can't do in the playoffs. You beat him every year,
yeah.
every time in the regular season, but you can't do it in the postseason. And here comes Brady and the Buccaneers to Lambeau.
And look, I mean, as dominant as the 49ers are, and obviously they kind of really took it to the like Buccaneers earlier this regular season, and really it started the Brock Purdy run. There's no way San Francisco's comfortable with Tom Brady coming and playing a playoff game after what happened the last time he was in San Francisco. Now he has a chance to come back to win a playoff. Again, assuming they win tonight, they have a chance to win a playoff game and go to another NFC Championship game, and you can do that in your hometown. I don't think the 49ers want anything to do with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's primarily because of Tom Brady. And look, I mean, there's still an outside chance at this point in time. It's 9:56 in the morning that Ryan Jensen could be activated tonight for the game tonight. And you add that element to what has been a struggle all season, and that is consistent play from your offensive line. All of a sudden, that changes a lot, and all those other things that they were starting to do positively on offense start to become a little bit easier when you get better and more consistent offensive line play. So, yeah, so tonight's going to be interesting. What I don't think is if they do lose, that's the Buccaneers. I do not think this is Tom Brady's last game. I feel pretty confident that that's the case. Whether he ultimately comes back with the Buccaneers, which I think we should prepare ourselves for that possibility. But either way, I think he ends up playing next year. So I'm not. It's tricky, John. Like, I never want to think about that possibility. And last year I was kind of caught off guard because I kind of felt the same way I did right now, which is kind of concerning that there's no way this could be his last game. Oddly enough, I actually feel more confident now than I did last year that this won't be his last game. And again, I mean, every indication he's given, every sort of action he's taken, and just the lack of any sort of rumor. You know what I mean? I feel like there's no way he's not coming back for at least one more year. So that's not something I'm necessarily concerned about, although the possibility does exist, and it does sit in my head that, this could, quote unquote, potentially could be Tom Brady's very last game. But I'm not going to think about that, John. Not going to think about it.
Yeah. Don't put it in your head. He's coming back next year, I think. I feel pretty confident about it, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, look, who knows? And, we'll see. But anyways, that's going to do it for us here tonight. Like I said, enjoy the game tonight. It hopefully should be a fun one. It should, hopefully, again, just give us some good football to watch tonight. I got the Buccaneers winning tonight. He has the Cowboys, he being John Sapichetti. And tomorrow we'll find out which one of us is right and which one of us is wrong. And I have a feeling I'm going to be the one who's going to be right. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at FullPressNFL. Go head over to FullPressCoverage.com. And, of course, subscribe to this show and all of our shows available at Full Press Coverage on Apple, on Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you, everyone, and we will talk to you tomorrow.